I absolutely agree with Kareen's message. We have not just an opportunity, but a real call to action now. And this really is about saying, instead of looking back behind us at how things used to be and how secure we all felt, and wasn't it great until the Americans ruined housing and all of the terrible things that happened as a result of that. But rather than looking back on that and saying, gosh, how are we going to manage with all of this struggle that we're facing, I think it's time to say, well, the future that we're looking forward to is going to be so good. It really is going to be so worthwhile. And it's that excitement and that buzz and that passion that's going to pull us forward to embracing that opportunity with relish. And that's what I invite you to do today. So, the reason that I am in the job I'm in, to start with that, I spent most of my career with one foot in the private sector and one foot in the voluntary sector. It began when I worked for Shell, and I found out about a guy called Bob Geldof who'd come back from Africa and said, this is dreadful, people are dying. And through the work of Band-Aid, through the work that was going on then, I decided that I had to do something. I was living a very privileged life, working for an oil company that was paying me far too much to just sit around and shuffle paper all day. So I thought, what can I possibly do? I can't make a difference. I couldn't actually go to Africa and solve some of these hunger issues myself, because if people out there who live in that climate can't deal with it, how the hell can I deal with it? I've got nothing to offer. I don't have the skills or the expertise or the experience. I just have a sense of this is not right. What can I do? Well, I was a little overweight at the time. I'm not going to take any comments about whether or not that's changed. But at the time I thought, right, what I could do is I could correlate this issue around eating and hunger. And maybe if I lost weight, maybe if I said, okay, the food I eat for luxury could save the life of a starving child. You know, it's not necessarily the same food, but you got the gist of it. And I thought, for me, that makes sense. I can do this. So I put myself on a 10-week program, challenged myself to lose weight, which I did. And the more I went down that journey, the more I started to realise and understand the issues that we're dealing with and how we're going to address them. Now, during the course of that process, I raised about £500 for Band-Aid, mainly because people started to get excited with me. They wanted me to succeed. Now, that was an interesting point as well. They were interested in my success, not just because I was doing it to help combat hunger, but because they wanted me to feel good and be happy. And it was that sharing of that interest and that passion that started to change the way I was seeing my role and seeing my future and seeing opportunities that lay ahead. As a result of that experience as well, I developed a whole new set of skills and a whole new outlook on life, which was later to come massively into its own. And I used that fundamental experience as the bones of a leadership training course, which was all about taking responsibility, taking up the challenge, and looking to create a lasting change out of very, very little other than hope, other than passion, other than a sense of this is not right. What can we do? So there my career kind of blossomed, and I went into my own business at one point. I'd spent some time working in the voluntary sector, running a community centre, and I started to see things differently, and I started to feel very connected, and I recognised that there are a whole load of skills that the private sector develops in people. Business acumen, a sense of efficiencies, decision-making, the speed of decision-making, innovation, development of technology. All of these skills are wonderful. And then there's all of this good work that's done in the voluntary sector, a real understanding and compassion for people and empathy for people, a sense of it's more fulfilling to know that what I'm doing is making a difference. These are real values. And I thought, okay, so the business sector struggles because we always say, oh, my staff aren't motivated, we've got low team morale, we've got all of this stress and pressure, and people aren't performing the way I want them to. And then the voluntary sector says, oh, we can't cope, we've got no money, we don't know how to manage the resources that are available, we don't get enough resources, we don't get enough attention. And I thought, well, you know, we're actually good at what each other needs. And we need to kind of find a way to bridge that gap, which is why I then spent a long time looking to cross-fertilise those pools of expertise. So that brought me to a point where I met Mark Dixon, who is, if anybody knows Mark Dixon and ATAS and the story there, he developed a technique. He's a statistician with an enormous heart and an enormous brain. And what he did was he brought his love of sport and his love of maths together, and he created ATAS, which is a statistical research consultancy. That gave him a chance to generate wealth. And with the generation of that, he then started to look at, well, what needs to be done? What does the world actually need? And from his experience, what he was passionate about was education. So he started to explore that opportunity. What if we could make it easier for children to learn? And that's the basis for a lot of the future work that he's engaged in. So we have a man with that vision and the capacity to do something about it, and the opportunity to do something about it. And then you have me coming along, bouncing around saying, I wonder if you could maybe look at this idea. And he did. And when we got together to develop a couple of businesses. And one of them that came out of that relationship was ATAS Respect. So ATAS Respect is here to deliver Mark's beyond profit agenda. So everything that we in the ATAS group feel is worth doing, ATAS Respect tries to get involved with helping to make happen. Now, when we first started, we really didn't know what to do about this, so we had a mission. We went off and found some partners, and we started spending a little bit of money, and we looked at how that finance could make a difference. But gradually we realised that it wasn't just about that. It wasn't really about putting the money out there. It was about generating the context for a new conversation, for a new dialogue. And a conversation which allowed us to address the business sector and say, look, there are all kinds of benefits to partnership. There's all kinds of benefits that can come back to the business in terms of commercial advantage by by building relationships in the community. Why don't you get more involved? So partly what we did was we set ourselves the challenge of focusing on the business sector and looking at how to influence thinking. And that was interesting because it had to be done. It's a job that still needs to be done, but it's not an easy job. Why? Because we all have a certain mindset and we all have a certain sense of priority. And I believe that one of the struggles that we're facing in the business sector is a short-term view of self-interest. Now, that short-term view of self-interest is very real, and all of us know that experience. If ever we've been struggling, if ever we've got to the end of the money before the end of the month, we know what it's like to have to make ends meet in a situation where it's really hard to do that. And when you know that the livelihoods of a whole group of people are depending on you and what you do for their salaries, for their income, then that becomes really hard as well. So it's very difficult not to be short-term self-interested in business. But at the same time, when we look at what's available to us as an economy, and we look at what's possible, we recognise that it's the innovative thinking, it's the way of projecting that sense of optimism and that sense of curiosity that's going to allow us to innovate and that's going to allow us to start generating opportunities. So that's really where I'm trying to work. I'm trying to find openings to explore those possibilities with other businesses. But I'm also interested in assisting wherever I can with voluntary organisations who need to tap into that business support and that business model so that they can then articulate real opportunity. So if you are going to go to a business and you're going to ask them to partner with you and look at an initiative that you can both get behind, you need to know what their priorities are. You need to be able to realistically embrace what your opportunity is to serve them. Is that fair? Yeah? Because if you're not, because here's the thing, if you're not looking at how you can make life easier for the business sector, then there is no way that they are going to break out of that self-interested short-term mindset. Because they will just see you as a cost. They will see you as an obligation. They will see you as a frustration. And we don't want that. We want them to see you as a golden opportunity, because that's exactly what you are. So let's look at how we can do that. Would that be interesting? No, that's fine.
You can plan it and I can shift the board.
Oh, yes.
It's a bit
yes,
further.
Lovely, thank you. First of all, you see this roughly? I'd just like to just present a small model. And when we look at a partnership, for me, we have to look first of all at competition. And this is how I traditionally see competition. So let's all pretend we're all business people right now, okay? So we are all in the business of producing widgets or whatever we do, and we are in competition with each other. So there are various businesses, and they all have, this is the market for our widgets, and we all have a share of that market. So there's maybe a giant one here who's really dominating the market, and maybe we're amongst these people who are trying to get our bit. And so what do? We kind of focus on trying to move that boundary that way, trying to move that boundary that way, and then we find, well, the same thing is happening around us. So our competitors are putting the same forces on us. They're putting the same pressure. That makes sense, doesn't it? This is competition. So what's collaboration? Collaboration is saying, listen, we don't need to worry about how these lines are operating. We really, really don't. Even if I come along and I'm a tiny player and that's all I have in that marketplace. What I'm interested in, instead of trying to move that boundary, is I'm trying to move that boundary. Does that make sense? Because if we can grow this, then it really, really doesn't matter where these lines fall. We will always, by instinct, be trying to move them. But what I think is much, much more interesting is how together we can find a way to put whatever mechanisms in place are required to expand that. Now, if we're doing it individually, we've only got a certain amount of pressure we can put. But if we're working together, wow, then things become more available. Is that right? So could that be an interesting way forward? I think collaboration involves this, because otherwise, if you see, this is all opportunity, isn't it, in this space? Well, you can see Martha should have written that. So this is all opportunity. We're saying we want opportunity to be greater. Now, we've just heard from Kareem, we're facing a situation where the money is getting tighter, where the resource is getting more and more scarce. We've been there before. We've gone through all this. I know this is a new problem. I know this is like we've never had it so bad. But frankly, we've never had it so good either. Because if we know that dealing with scarce resources is something we have coped with, then all we have to do is recognise that the way to expand opportunity comes down to one word. And right now, the opportunity to do that, the whole meat of innovation, lies in things which are really relatively affordable. And it's our capacity to communicate with people, to recognise the benefits of technology, and to recognise that by sharing the message and getting into the frame of the same kind of thinking with people, that we are going to start making that difference. My view is the enemy here is conflict. The opportunity is collaboration. The enemy isn't lodged in one sector or another. The enemy isn't lodged in one business or another, or one organisation, or it's not about that. It is about recognising that inner enemy of competition, of self-interest, because it's short-term. There is plenty of room for self-interest in a longer-term model, in a collaborative model, because all of the boats will float higher when the ocean rises. True? So that's my challenge now, is what do we need to do to start finding common ground? So could you please grab a piece of paper and arrange, if you will, 9 dots. Please arrange 9 dots in that manner on your page. There'll be plenty of people in the room who've done this exercise before, and I apologise if you've seen it. Okay, so you've got 9 dots on your page. Here's your task. Please connect all 9 dots using only 4 straight lines without taking your pen from the paper. Simple. Not necessarily easy, but totally simple. Please connect all 9 dots using 4 straight lines without taking your pen from the paper. Anybody's struggling? It is not easy. It is simple, but it's not easy. Well done. There'll be some people in the room who've done it, I should think. And some people in the room. Is anybody in the room still puzzled? Yes. Good, good, good. Trust me, most of the people in the room who've done it have seen it before. It really is difficult. Okay. Because we're short of time, would it be okay if I put you out of your wisdom? Yes. All right. Colour. And well done to everybody who solved it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, why was that so difficult? Okay. Who thinks I was cheating? Let me just ask, did you in your mind's eye see a little barrier here? Did you? And that's how we address problems. Anything that crops up, relationships, notoriously. Anything that crops up, we put a barrier around what we know. And the real difficulty that we all face, day in, day out, big things, little things, everything, is breaking through that barrier. Was there a barrier on the page? Was there? No. Where was the barrier? Absolutely. That's the inner enemy. That's competition. That enemy is the short-term self-interest of self-protection. We do this. Anything that we try and solve, we look at what do we know about the problem, what do we rely on, what do we depend on. We depend on these dots because this is what we know. We depend on the area that they are containing. We depend on that security because that's what we believe in, that's what we've learnt, that's what we've trusted all our lives. So all of this is the past. Where is the most exciting opportunity to be found? In the past? No, I hear you cry. Oh, thank you. The real opportunity is jumping out of it, is hurling ourselves into that unknown territory. Why is that difficult to do? What's the big thing you have to deal with if you're going to do that? Fear of the unknown. Yes, absolutely. Fear. Why? Because there is a very, very real risk that you might get it wrong. So what we've got to do is we've got to recognise that along with innovation goes willingness to risk. It goes with willingness to fail. The opportunity to be comfortable with the prospect of failure. And any business who is innovating understands that. And that's what I invite you to do. I invite you to recognise that what is at stake is worth it, because the opportunity that lies ahead for us is absolutely unlimited. Thank you.